Welcome back to Sports Talk with Dad. As always, my name is Kyle, and I cannot call the Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me. A man so old he remembers the last time Wisconsin was able to easily beat an unranked team. My dad, Tim.
They won by shutout. Leave them alone.
They scored 17 points on Miami of Ohio.
You know what was even more concerning to me than the fact that they only scored 17? For what is it, second or third year in a row, their starting quarterback goes down in the first quarter.
Yeah, well, when a quarterback shows up with a big old brace on his knee to start the season, that's not a good sign.
Looks like he's going to be ready for Alabama. He'll take this week off.
How much is Wisconsin going to lose to Alabama by, honestly?
I'm hoping it's by less than 10.
The good news is, and this is something that'll bring you happiness and hope, is Ohio State beat the number one team in the country and should be the number one team in the country.
No, LSU should be the number one team.
You are out of LSU won by 7 points at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Ohio State never lost control of the football game.
Ohio State's offense looked anemic.
Ohio State's offense looked like they had a brand new starting quarterback.
It looked in. What's your point?
And we looked anemic against a great defensive team. Your offense looked terrible against Miami of Ohio.
The big concern
at home.
The big concern coming out of that game, Arch Manning didn't look comfortable.
But this goes into why I say you're going to see cupcake schedules moving forward. It was unfair to both starting quarterbacks to have that type of game and to have Arch Manning on the road against a team that probably
will be playing,
in my opinion, should have been, but could have been ranked the number one team in the country themselves.
Well, certainly
that's an unfair situation.
Certainly probably be one of the number 1, 2, or 3 seeds going in, depending on how the season plays out. Right. But I think they could be the number one seed.
Arch Manning is going to be fine coming towards the end of the season. That's just a really tough spot for him to be starting out his career. You needed to put him against some unranked, unknown team to start the season, get him comfortable starting in a football game, and then you face Ohio State.
That's what we have now. I mean, LSU played Clemson. It was a great game.
It was a very good game. Clemson should have won that game.
Should have, but LSU showed a lot of guts, and they won the game. What's going on with Alabama? Losing to FSU?
I think FSU is a revitalized program, and I think that DeBoer should have never taken that job. I said this a couple years ago when he took it. You have nothing to gain. Unless you're going to go in and start winning national title after national title, you have nothing to gain by taking this job. The man following Saban was always going to fail in comparison to what Saban was able to do.
Well, it's because it's like the man following Lombardi. He was not going to do anything. The man following Belichick. It's the most impossible task there is.
Dead man walking.
Yes.
Look what happened to the man who fired Lombardi, fired after 3 years. Look what happened to the man that followed Belichick, fired after 1 year to bring in the guy they wanted all along, but they didn't want to put him in a bad situation. DeBoer taking that job was a dumb mistake. You never were going to succeed. I mean, the guy who followed Bear Bryant, right? Sure. Just wasn't going to work out well because you're going to die by comparison.
I give him credit for taking the job. He was very, very successful.
Yeah.
He's the one guy who could come in and probably keep most of the recruits that were there for Saban.
But he didn't.
He lost some because of NIL.
He lost Sayan, who's now Ohio State's coach. And the reason Nick Saban left was because he had no control over recruiting with NIL.
He's right, by the way.
I agree. And you're going to just DeBoer going into that situation. He's a great coach, and his legacy is being tarnished because he was in a no-win situation. Other teams got better. Alabama couldn't keep up. But it is the beginning of the NFL season next week. And you and I cannot start an NFL season without a man whose last name rhymes with candy because his takes are so sweet. Former NFL and CFL scout, Russ Lande. How you doing,
What's going
Russ?
on, fellas? How we doing?
Doing great. So we have to start this with the reason I'm wearing my Packers shirt right now. The biggest move in the NFL.
Because there's nothing else clean?
There is that.
Listen.
He knows you.
He does know me well. That's very true. But it is the biggest move in the NFL, possibly since the Packers signed Reggie White, Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. How is this going to change the entire NFL?
Well, firstly, I will say there was a bigger move since Reggie White. It was a bad move but the 3 first rounders for Deshaun Watson was a disaster.
That's fair.
That was a bigger move. It was an unmitigated disaster. To me, this is a great trade for a lot of reasons. I mean, firstly, if you just look at player for player, Parsons is not only a better player, but he's younger.
Yeah.
And Jordan Love is young, so you're going to get him for a longer run. So you get him for probably 6 to 7, 8 years if he stays healthy and everything goes well. Clark, you probably have for 4. So just there, you're winning. And yes, first-round picks are valuable. Understand it, but they're later first-round picks. The other side of this, from the Cowboys' point of view, that I don't understand is on the opposite end. They don't have Jordan Love, a young guy. They've got an old quarterback.
Right.
They're counting on picks to help them in 3 years. And they're getting rid of what I think is, if not the best defensive player, the second or third best in all of football. So to me, their team gets worse now. They'll get better when their quarterback is probably nearing the end. It puts the Packers in a great spot because, and we've talked about it in the past, but this year's team, obviously the young quarterback is looking like he is taking the steps to where the team wants him to be. But the offensive line is a question mark. The receivers are unproven. Well, how do you fix that? Well, you've got Rashawn Gary. Now Rashawn Gary becomes your other pass rusher, and that's pretty special. And now all of a sudden, you get after the quarterback. It makes your defense an upgrade. The offense doesn't have to play as well. My first mentor in the business always had the famous quote of, if the quarterback's the most important guy in the field, then the guys who can knock him out of the game are second. Well, they got the best at knocking guys out of the game. So that alone gives their defense a chance to be a top 5 defense. Will they be a great team? I don't know about a great team, but I think they have a chance to win 10 to 12 games because of this impact player.
It changes the defense. The biggest question mark on the Packers this year was the corners, right? Jair Alexander's gone and really didn't play well for us when he was here last year. This all of a sudden takes the pressure off of them. You mentioned Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary made me extremely nervous, him being the number 1 guy, because we don't know if he's going to show up or not. Him being that second guy, all of a sudden being freed up, this changes the landscape of this defense completely.
It changes the landscape. And also remember, what makes corners better? A pass rush. You look at some of the great quote-unquote defenses over the years, some of them had average corners, but they just happen to be able to steamroll and get pressure on the quarterback, and it makes those corners look better. So their corners instantly got probably 20% better because they're not going to have to cover as long. The quarterback's not going to be as comfortable. It's a huge addition to their defense. Now it's just a matter, can they block well enough up front to give Jordan Love a chance to take the next step in his progression?
Well, that's a question. Before we go into the division picks, we talked about this last week. This is probably the worst offensive line I've seen in my lifetime. Moving Elton Jenkins to center makes no sense at all. And you have question marks. Zach Tom's solid. He's going to be your right tackle. But left tackle, we're relying on a 7th-round pick. Our 1st-round pick from a couple of years ago, we don't even know what he is yet. He's our backup.
Yeah, hey, I don't particularly love the idea of putting Jenkins at center. I understand the thought process, because the one thing that's sort of changed over the last 10 years is a lot of NFL people say, yes, it's important to have tackles, but because of all the checks and adjustments that a quarterback has to make and that he has to make in tandem with the center, you have to be extraordinarily smart up the middle. And because so many teams are trying to get in their pressure from inside as opposed to outside, you need that center to be dominant. But to me, the concern is, I just don't know if were they weaker when Myers was at center and he was at guard, or are they weaker now that he's at center and you have some lesser guys, maybe potentially, maybe they would get better, but potentially lesser guys at guard. So that's my concern. A quarterback's only good as his offensive line. There are very few times I've ever seen a quarterback be successful and win games regularly when the offensive line was not good.
And that's the biggest fear I've got for that. One more thing on the Micah Parsons trade. Obviously, we had a change in leadership. Mark Murphy's gone. Ed Policy comes in. Ed Policy is already showing he's a different cat. He told both LaFleur and Gutekunst, yeah, we're not extending you. I've got a feeling that he was behind this trade and looked at Gutekunst and said, make it happen. What's your take on that?
You know, I will say this. I don't know if he went to them and told them it's not happening or to do this, or if just the fire that was set by him saying, I'm not extending you, them saying, hey, if we're not getting extended, who cares if we don't have picks in the first round in the next 2 years? Let's go get like I said, best either 1, 2, or 3 defensive player in the league, and let's go out and win this year. And hopefully go deep in the playoffs. So they have to extend us. If they extend us and we have some troubles the next 3 or 4 years, well, so be it. But let's go out and prove that we earned that extension right now. And hey, I've always been of the belief, and it's not, I don't think 100%, but I've always been of the belief, every mentor I've ever worked for has always said, at the end of the day, at the end of a trade, the team that has the best player walking in their locker room after the trade usually ends up being better, regardless of draft picks, regardless of whatever, because draft picks are a roll of the dice. When you get a potential Hall of Fame player who plays like it every single game, there's something to be said. And with Half as their DC, I think that you're going to see him take advantage of this kid. He's going to move them all around. I think they're going to be really impressive getting after the quarterback this year.
Now, on the flip side, this is very unlike Jerry Jones. They're very good at draft and develop. Did Jerry Jones just overplay his hand, or was this more of a personal type of situation, do you think?
I don't know if it's so much overplay. I think he looked at his history and he was able to pull this off with Dak Prescott. I think he believes a lot in that the Cowboys are the place where most players want to be. Then in the end, players aren't going to screw themselves and sit out for a year or whatever it may be when they could get paid $20 million. I think he really felt in his heart of hearts that Parsons would say, all right, I'll do whatever you got to do. We'll get something done. I don't think he anticipated he was going to put his feet in the sand and say, hey, this is not happening. And because of that and his unwillingness to move and negotiate a new deal late, I think there was no other way for this to work out, because I do think Parsons would have found a way to get paid this season, but maybe not play every game if he had stayed in Dallas. I think it would have been a very contentious situation. It would have wrecked their locker room. So I think, unfortunately, I think it was a misjudgment. Not that he sort of screwed up, but I don't think he anticipated this guy standing up and saying, I want a fair deal.
Well, he definitely got more than a fair deal. $47 million a year is quite a bit of change, something we don't see from the Packers. But listen, this was as surefire as a Packers quarterback going and playing for the Jets. Second guy in history to have 12 or more sacks in his first 4 years. The other one, Reggie White, after those 4 years, he signed with the Green Bay Packers. It's funny how it works. Now we just have to wait for Jordan Love to go to the Jets in the next few years.
I know something else that has to happen. That stupid list you went through a couple weeks ago that I had to sit and listen to is pretty much out the window now.
It's not. Listen, I have a list. I went through every single game of the NFL season. I do now have to make some adjustments.
Why did you go through every game?
I don't want to hear about the 64-32 that you had last year anymore, but I
beat him in pick'em games a couple years in a row, and this is what I get.
I have to try.
I think you should get a crown for doing that.
I do too.
Right? I mean, let's be real here. That's not easy to do. Being over 500 is not easy.
All I know is if I would have bet these games in Vegas, I'd be broke because everyone would have flipped.
Well, I do have to change these, but I wanted to go through the divisions with you one by one here. The Packers I had originally at 9-8. Obviously, I think they're an 11-win team now. But let's start here with the AFC North. The AFC North, I have the Cincinnati Bengals winning the division at 12-5. The Baltimore Ravens going 11-6, and Pittsburgh Steelers is a 10-7 team. Cleveland, I have at 5-12. You think I'm right, or you think I'm off?
I think the Bengals and Ravens, it's almost a flip of the coin. I think a lot of it's going to come down to, can the Bengals defense even become average? If they become average this year, then yeah, they're probably going to be in that 11-12 win area. Baltimore is going to win 11-12 games. I mean, they're a dominant regular season team. Lamar gets better every season. I do not agree that Pittsburgh is going to be a good team. I think Pittsburgh and Cleveland are both going to be in that 4-7 win area. I think it will be the first losing season of Tomlin's career.
Wow.
Rodgers?
I just think, and I just try to look at it from a human perspective, is very few players improve as they get over 40 years old. And we had an Achilles. We had some bad football last year. Yes, there were some flashes, but not consistently good play. Now he's in a new team, a new organization, a conservative organization that doesn't put the ball out there like he's used to. I just think it's not going to work out. I think they're going to have some major struggles overall. And hey, maybe Mike is, to me, one of the great coaches of all time. Maybe he pulls his magic and gets them to 9 or 10 wins, but I don't think they're going to be a very good team.
Huh. All right. I'm going to stick with my 10-7. I believe in Rodgers, and yes, that is a complete and total bias on my part. I want to see Rodgers go out on top.
That's fair.
I
Hey,
can see it not
I'm not
happen.
saying he's terrible. I'm just saying I think at this point he's probably a slightly above average quarterback. I
That's
don't
fair.
think he's the guy that can carry you, and I don't think that team is very good.
Well, they've
So
got
it's going to be interesting. If him and Metcalf click, maybe they get to that 11 wins. But I think it's going to be a 8 to 9. I think it's going to be a 500 or below team this year would be my guess.
I can see that.
My concern is Metcalf freelances a lot, and Rodgers doesn't like his wide receivers to freelance.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, he likes his straight up route runners, and I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers have that type of receiver on the team. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. AFC East, Buffalo I have running away. New England I have getting better at 8-9. The Jets I have 5-12, and I have the Miami Dolphins going 5-12 this year. I think it's about to fall apart in Miami.
You know, I will say one of the things that's talked about a lot around the league is, are the Dolphins going to be able to pull everything together? Is McDaniel going to be able to put the distractions aside and get them pointed in the right direction? A lot of people don't think he's going to. They tend to agree with you. I think they're going to be about a 500, 8 to 9 win team. I don't think they're going to be the team that lights it up. I think this is a cakewalk for Buffalo with 12 or more wins. I think the Patriots will improve. I think having Josh McDaniel to work with Drake May will give their offense a big bump, but I still think they're probably a 500 team. The Jets, I think, are going to be awful, but I do think they're going to improve and start going in the right direction. I do believe in their coach and their GM, so I think they're going in the right direction. They're just not a good team right now.
So, do you think with Buffalo specifically, is this that last year before the window kind of closes on a big Super Bowl run?
You know, I don't know. I've always been the belief that if your quarterback is still playing at an extraordinary high level, then I don't think the window closes. Now, you may have to retool around him, but I don't foresee Josh Allen getting worse in the next 5 years unless he suffers a catastrophic injury. And they've done a pretty good job of finding players to fit around him. So I don't think the window is closing. Will it close for some of their other veterans? Maybe they're not going to be there if they don't win this year. But I think that team will be a double-digit win team for the next 5 years.
Now, with the Jets, do you think Justin Fields is going to take a next step in his career?
No.
Or do you think that Justin Fields is going to actually end up hampering this team?
I think Justin Fields will sort of be what he is, which is a guy that teases you with 3 or 4 plays a game where you say, why don't I see that all the time? Because he's so gifted, because he's a smart kid. He's a great athlete. He's got a live arm. He can be an accurate thrower, but he doesn't do it consistently. So I don't think he's going to take the next step and be a high-end starter. I think he's going to be probably what you want as your awesome backup. But I do think that team is going to play harder. They're going to be more organized. They're not going to make as many mental busts on either side of the ball. So I do think they're going to improve. I just don't think Fields is the long-term answer there.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Last one on the AFC East here, the Miami Dolphins. Is this Tua's last year as the starting quarterback of this organization?
Oh, it's a great question. I will say this. If Mike survives, if he does a good job, and everything I've ever heard about him as a guy is that he's great. If he wins this year and finds a way to keep the job, then Tua's fine. If they don't, and their owner cleans house, a lot of that will come down to if the new coach wants to deal with a guy who's been a little bit fragile, a guy who is not a traditional easy pocket passer. He's a guy who have to move around a lot. I would think a new coach would be a good chance he would want to move in a new direction, but maybe not immediately, because a new coach isn't stupid enough to get rid of him if he doesn't have anybody else. But yes, it could be his last year as the guy if the new people are planning to replace him eventually.
All right, fair enough. On to the AFC South here. I have the Houston Texans going 11-6, winning the division. I have Jacksonville going 9-8. I actually Tennessee with Cam Ward. I have them going 7-10, and I have the Colts going 3-14.
You know, I mean, firstly, I think the Texans, to me, may be the sleeper team in the whole league.
Agreed.
I don't think that C.J. Stroud gets enough credit for. I mean, I've heard a number of NFL people have told me that the Bears may like to talk about how they were able to avoid taking Bryce Young, but there's a good chance they will be talking about how they regret passing on C.J. Stroud when they made that trade, because There are a lot of people in the league think he's the best young quarterback in the NFL, and that this team is going to potentially be a 13 to 14 win team because they have two elite pass rushers.
Yeah.
They have really good defensive backs. And man, this quarterback is special. Now, the running situation with Mixon out and having to rely on Nick Chubb, who obviously hasn't been the same since that injury, it's a concern. But I think Houston's going to be very good. I think Tennessee's going to do some good things. I think Cam Ward's got a lot of things you want in a frontline quarterback. I think they'll be a 6-7 win team. I actually think Jacksonville and Indianapolis are going to be pretty bad. I'm not sold that they're going to be able to put Trevor Lawrence in the best spot to be successful. And I just don't see it with the Colts. I think, unfortunately, the Colts will probably be looking for a new head coach and potentially GM after this season because it is going to be ugly, in my opinion.
Do you think this is the last big chance for Trevor Lawrence? He just hasn't panned out the way everybody thought he would early in his career.
I don't know if it's the last big chance because he's so gifted and he's still young. But I will say, if it doesn't work there with this new head coach, Liam Cohen, I could see a new coach coming in and say, we're going to trade him, especially if something were to happen this year and next year where Lawrence gets hurt, doesn't play, and Mac Jones comes in and plays well. Let's not forget, he was the rookie of the year 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you could see a coach come in, they change the head coach there because things don't go well. And this guy says, hey, Mac's only 27. He's played well the last 2 years. Lawrence has been inconsistent. We're moving on. Lawrence, to me, is a great mystery because there are games you watch him and you are sure this guy is going to be a superstar. And other games, it just looks like he's in his first start ever. He doesn't see the defense. He doesn't make the proper reads. It's just odd. I can't figure out where that inconsistency comes from.
To me, it's just a guy that made a lot of money, but it doesn't seem to be putting in the extra work that it takes to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm not saying he's Kyler Murray, but something's missing.
Yeah, I really don't, at least from the people I know there, I don't think it's the lack of work. I think it's just something when he's in the pocket. I don't think he sees it as clearly. Certain guys just see it clearly, and other guys are always fighting to see what's actually going on and make the proper decision. And for whatever reason, it just tends to come and go with him. I don't know the reason. I'd love to find out because while I thought he was tied with Mac Jones to be the best quarterback coming out that year. To me, there was something that made me wonder why a guy with this much talent was not as consistently dominant.
It is a weird one. He's had the receiving talent to do it. He's had running backs that have done good enough things to give him time. This is a year for him for sure. On to the Colts here. Daniel Jones getting the starting role, which intrigues me beyond belief. But what is more surprising is Anthony Richardson really not even putting up a fight to get this starting role. What's going on with him, do you think? And is this the end of his career?
I don't think it's the end of his career because the one thing you do have with Anthony, even though obviously it hasn't panned out on the field yet, is you have a high character person. Like you won't find anybody from college or with the Colts that'll say this is a guy that's not going to put in the time and effort, isn't a good teammate, doesn't do all the work, all those things. And he's immensely gifted. So if it doesn't work there, which it doesn't look like it's going to, he will get another opportunity. Maybe not as a starter. Maybe he has to go somewhere as a backup and prove himself, like a Trey Lance or maybe a Marcus Mariota or something like that. But I think you just look at it and say, okay, so, and truthfully, the funny part is Daniel Jones, there's a lot of similarities when you look at them in that they're both immensely physically gifted. Neither one has been consistently good when they actually played football in the NFL. Daniel Jones has got tons of talent. You look at his arm. He's a smart kid when you talk to him, another hardworking guy. It just doesn't seem to come together for him. So it's a weird situation. I have a feeling, and I hate to say it because Chris Ballard, their GM, may be the best human being in the NFL. He's just literally the person that he treats everybody like gold. He's a great human being. But it wouldn't shock me if they have a new head coach and GM after this year and that they get rid of both Jones, Richardson, clean house, and bring in a draft pick, a veteran, and start from scratch.
Fair enough. On to the AFC West. Now, this is where I think you and I may have some disagreements here. But I have winning the division, the Los Angeles Chargers at 12-5, the Broncos going 11-6, the Chiefs going 10-7, and the Raiders going 7-10.
Firstly, I would love for that to actually happen. I've been a Chargers fan since I grew up. I have my powder blue autographed Fouch jersey hanging in my office. So trust me, I want the Chargers to be that team. But I am very concerned that they're going to be a below 500 team this year.
Wow.
They lost their left tackle. Now they're putting their right tackle at left tackle, which he hasn't played in years. Their quarterback, to me, is immensely gifted, is inconsistent. Their defense is relying on an ancient Khalil Mack, who still plays well, but he's old. He's their best pass rusher. So they're counting on a lot of things that I think are difficult to be successful, nonetheless, in a division where I still think Andy is the best coach in the division. I still think he has the best quarterback. I think they're going to win this division. I think they're going to win 12 games, 13 games. Are they perfect? No, but they just keep finding a way, getting that kid Simmons from Ohio State, putting him at left tackle. That offensive line is going to be better than it was a year ago. I think Denver's going to make improvements. I do think Bo Nix is going to make some jumps, some strides, having Peyton. And I think the Raiders are going to be very much improved. I think Pete's a great coach. I think they brought in a bunch of talent. I think the Raiders and the Broncos will be in a great battle for second place. And I hate to say it, but I think the Chargers at 7 or 8 wins are going to finish in last place in this division. And it kills me to say that as a Chargers fan.
I'm sure it does. But what is it with Herbert? He's always been one of those guys that's right in the edge of greatness. But even Harbaugh couldn't get him to step up his game last year.
That's, and it's a hard thing to figure out. A good friend of mine worked there for 13 years. He just left to go to a major college program. And he said that it's the mystery. He said there's no harder worker on the team. There's no better human being. There's no smarter person. He puts in so much time, so much effort. It's just inconsistency that he just doesn't, from play to play, make sure his feet are in the right place. Make sure he's doing things on a consistent basis. And he just makes little mistakes. And it's not, like I said, due to lack of effort, lack of toughness, lack of smarts, lack of work off the field. It just doesn't seem to be consistent. He's immensely talented. But wow, there are games you look at him and you think, this is a starting quarterback. And that's what's frustrating with Herbert. There's so much there. He should be better than he is at this point.
Now, on to the Chiefs. You said 11 to 10 wins. They don't have a receiver to start. 12 wins. Sorry.
12 wins.
They don't have a receiver to start the season. Travis Kelce, I don't think necessarily is in football the way that he was. And I don't blame him. He's 36, but the whole Taylor Swift thing, it seems to be taking his mind elsewhere. And you have a defense that, besides that defensive line, is question marks everywhere. Why do you think it's going to be 12 wins?
Well, I think their offensive line is going to be better. They got the first-round pick, Simmons. They have the right tackle, is the veteran kid that's been around the league, been paid a lot of money. He's solid. They have the best coach, in my opinion, in the NFL. They have a great quarterback. While they may not have these receivers that you want to say they're all perfect, they have some solid guys. I think Worthy is going to be special this year. I just think defensively, are they great? No. Their defensive line is good. Their back seven, there are inconsistencies, but you don't have to be great when your offense is doing good things. You just have to be average, sort of like the Bengals. Yeah. And I think their defense will be average. And when you have a great quarterback and a truly special, rare coach, I think it'll be enough. There's just something about it. They know how to win. The guy is a masterful coach. Trust me, I would love to say the Chargers are going to be better. I just don't see it. I think the Chiefs are going to keep going. I think they're going to be doing this for the next 3-4 years. Now, whether they win 3 or 4 more Super Bowls or just go deep in the playoffs, I don't know. But I'd be stunned if they don't win that division.
And Andy Reid, we trust.
Yeah, for sure. They're in a transition period the same way the Patriots were, right? The Patriots had to get a whole new team to win 3 new Super Bowls. The only thing that was consistent was Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I think they're starting
but they still won 10 to 12 games every one of those years.
That's true.
And that's what I think will happen here. Even if they don't go deep in the playoffs, I think you're going to see them win 10, 11, 12 and win that division. Hey, you can't win the Super Bowl every year, but the Patriots won, 10 games for 18 straight years?
Way too many.
That's fair. It's fair. All right, on to the NFC and to the NFC North. This is where my prediction, I think, has to change a little bit. But I do have still Detroit winning at 12-5. I had the Packers finishing in second at 9-8. I think Micah Parsons can shift that by a game or two. I have the Minnesota Vikings going 8-9, and I have the Bears going 4-13.
And I put, just so you know, I took Detroit's taking a step back because they lost Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. We're going to get a great feel for how much those two coordinators actually had a direct impact on the team, because our new coordinators that have to step in and keep things rolling at the same sort of speed. I tend to think there's going to be a little drop off for them, but the one advantage they get is Hutchinson is back, and if he's healthy, their defense should be better than it was last year. So I think it'll be neck and neck between them and the Packers. I really think it's going to be whoever finishes strong, stays healthy, will get to that 12 wins and win the division. The Vikings, to me, are one of the great wild cards. If McCarthy, if Kevin O'Donnell proves that he is one of the quarterback whisperers and gets McCarthy to play at a level like he got Darnold to play, and McCarthy is a younger guy with a lot more potential right now, then Minnesota could be in that 11-win range because they have a lot of talent. Right. You just don't know if the quarterback is the guy. They're getting Darashaw back, who was out last year from midway or 4 or 5 games in. They have a lot of talent. If this quarterback proves good, Minnesota's going to be right there. I'm very concerned about the Bears. You can't put a ton of stock in the preseason, but that game where they went against Kansas City's ones with Caleb Williams, I mean, if they had played their starters the whole game, the Chiefs might have lost by 100. It's scary how bad they look on offense, and I know it's a new head coach, a young quarterback, but it's very scary. It makes me wonder if this kid is the answer. I'd be surprised if they win more than 5 or 6 games this year.
Well, and Caleb Williams, I don't care preseason or not, missing a net from 10 yards away and then getting frustrated at that is never a good sign for a young quarterback. It's a very Ryan Leaf situation, in my opinion.
Well, I wouldn't go as far to say Ryan Leaf just because he's a good kid. Like, this kid's not going to do anything crazy. He's not going to go do anything off the field. I mean, he's a good young man.
Yeah, but from a mental standpoint, he just seems like he's overwhelmed by the game as a whole.
And that may be true, but that happens to a lot of. I just don't want to compare him to a Leaf. I'd rather say, hey, maybe he's a Daniel Jones, maybe somebody like that who has all the tools, works hard, it just doesn't come together. And I just also don't think their team is that good. Their offensive line, to me, is very questionable. Their defense, I'm not sold on. I will tell you, there was a CFL scout I spoke to, and CFL scouts go to NFL training camps to look at the players that might be cut.
Sure.
And this scout went to 8 or 10 NFL teams, and we ended up chatting at one point after he'd been to the teams, and he said of all the teams he went to, he said the Browns and the Bears literally looked like they were a full step below every other team in terms of talent.
Wow.
So when you hear that, it's sort of scary because, okay, maybe you have a few spots you're weak, but when he said it was a dramatic drop-off. So that's a scary thought, especially because your offense isn't dominant. So you don't have a Hall of Fame quarterback to say, okay, I can carry a team that maybe isn't that good. So very scary where they're at. I hope it works because, like I've said before many times, and you guys may not like to hear it, but I really think the NFL is a far better league when the Bears and the Giants are winning. I don't think the Bears are going to be winning much this year, so I think it's going to be bad for the league overall.
Hey, as Packer fans, it's more fun when the Bears are good, right? It's like Ohio State, Michigan. It's not fun when one's bad and the other one's good. You want them both there in the end. It makes the games more exciting, the rivalry more entertaining. I'm with you. I want to see the Bears turn it around, but I'm with you. I don't think they're going to. My question now, Minnesota, with Brian Flores running that defense, the receivers that they have, they are in a win-now mode. They signed Carson Wentz, obviously just to be a veteran backup. How quick do you think the trigger finger is for Kevin O'Connell this year when they are in a win-now mode with J.J. McCarthy?
I don't think it's quick at all. And the only reason I say this is when this offseason began, everybody said, well, the ownership hasn't given O'Donnell or Kwesi a contract extension. They both got it now. So in my mind, you're foolish if you say, you know what, we drafted this kid, we believe in this kid, 5 games in, we're pulling the plug so we can play a guy who we know in 2 years won't be the quarterback. Whereas even if they go 2-15, they're not firing the head coach and GM. They just gave them both 4 or 5 year extensions. So why not roll with the kid, let him get better, and then in 2026, boom, he's the quarterback you expected when you drafted him in the first round, and your team is rocking and rolling. So I'd be very surprised if he gets benched, unless not so much record-wise, but unless from watching the film, they feel he's overwhelmed and he's just not ready. But I'd be very surprised if that happened. I'd be stunned.
All right, on to the NFC East, the division with all the question marks. I have the Philadelphia Eagles going 11-6, taking a little step back. I still think they're going to win the division. I have Washington taking a huge step back and going 9-8. I have the Cowboys going 8-9. This was before the Micah Parsons trade. I think it might be a little bit worse than that now. And I have the Giants going 4-13.
I agree a lot. The only one I don't so much agree, I really think Washington, they're going to be, I don't think they're taking a step back. I think, yes, rookie quarterbacks, usually that second year, there's a drop. But I think they're going to find a way to get to that 10, 11, 12 wins. So I think they'll be competing with the Eagles down to the wire. The Eagles are still a better team all around. The thing that scares me a little bit with Washington, this is what we were talking about sort of a little earlier with the Bills, is even though Jaden's young, the window could be closing on the Commanders, because this is the oldest team in the league. They have 5 or 6 guys they are counting on that are 33 and 34 and 35. So it's not that Jaden Daniels is going to get bad, but if they don't win this year, they may have to retool their whole roster. So can they squeeze one more year out of a bunch of 30-year-olds with Jaden probably having a little bit lesser year? It's going to be tough. I think they'll get to 10 or 11 wins. I just don't think they're going to be a dominant team. I think Dallas is going to take a big drop. I think you're talking 6, 7 wins. I think the Giants, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. I think you're talking about new head coach, new GM. When I talk to people around the league, I mean, a lot of people are looking at, I think it's week 5 or 7 when the Giants have a bye.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people expecting that head coach and GM to be out of work by then.
You think
Really?
Russell lasts a year? Or do you think he may be gone?
If they make a change, I would expect that if they make a change, they'll probably play Russell just because the interim guy will be trying to keep his job, like stay it together. If they don't make a change during the season and Russell is not good, the head coach will probably say, we're switching to Dart. I'm going to convince the owner that he's making strides, so I keep my job for next year.
So you think that the coach could be gone? I expect to switch by that bye week to Jackson Dart, but you're saying Daboll could be out of work come.
That's what
week
5. I mean, from what I was told, it was the owner only kept the head coach and GM this year because he wanted to, quote unquote, be patient. He felt that a lot of the Giants' problems were they kept making changes, but there's a lot of talk around the league that especially because of how bad that Hard Knocks made the team and the organization look, that if things go bad early, that this team's going to fall apart. They're going to make changes. Those are one of the 3 teams in the league that a lot of people are already talking about, like, hey, this could get ugly and they could end up getting rid of both the head coach and GM. And I never want to see anybody lose their job. That's not why I'm saying that could happen. I'm just saying what I'm hearing from talking to people around the league.
All right. I did not expect that. That's the surprise I take out of this. I was not expecting people saying Daboll could lose his job, but now that you make the argument, it definitely could happen. Philadelphia here. Jalen Hurts is being said he's a top 10 quarterback, not a top 5 quarterback. I think he's a top 5 quarterback. How can you say that he's not? Why is there such a disparity on how people think of Jalen Hurts, especially after taking his team to 2 Super Bowls and winning one?
I hate it when you take my question.
Sorry.
But
I think a lot of it really comes down to it's sort of a traditional versus non-traditional. There are certain people that are never going to get off I want a guy who can sit in the pocket and be that traditional pocket passer. So players like a Jalen Hurts or a Josh Allen are always going to get a little bit pushed saying, well, you make a lot of your plays on the move. When the play goes sideways, we're going to favor in our head guys that are more traditional drop back throwers. So I think there's a handful of people, and I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm saying a handful of people that evaluate talent that look at Hurts and say, yes, he's a good quarterback, very good, one of the top 10, but does he do enough as a pocket passer to where I feel comfortable saying this is a top 5 quarterback? I personally, the fact that people consider Herbert above this guy to me is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I don't think Hurts is perfect, but he's better than guys like Justin Herbert to me. Now, at the same time, I think Baker Mayfield is way underrated. He should be above Herbert. So everybody's going to have their own sort of flavor that they love, but Hurts is getting, I think, a little beat up because he's not a traditional pocket thrower. He does stuff on the move, and he doesn't put up such numbers like Lamar does to where you have to ignore the fact that he makes plays outside of the pocket. Lamar does a lot of his stuff sort of improv because he's so smart and so instinctive, but his numbers are so dramatic. He has to be considered a top 2 or 3 quarterback. Whereas Hurts doesn't have those numbers, so people can say, hey, he's 8 or 9, even though he does a lot of magical things. And he, like Chris Ballard, as a front office guy, Jalen may be one of the best humans in the NFL as a person. Just that's the guy you want in your building, leading the franchise.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, he may not look to be the quintessential Dan Marino in the pocket, but as a human being, he's the guy I want to face my franchise if I don't have another quarterback. I'm all over.
There's no question. No question. He is everything you want as a human being. He's pretty close to everything you want as a quarterback. They did a great job of identifying him and getting him, because I can tell you, I know one team in particular that has won a ton of games in the last 10 years. They felt he was a barely draftable quarterback coming out of college.
Wow.
They felt Hurts had almost no chance of becoming even a good backup. And he has turned into obviously a very good starter. So they did a great job of identifying him, working with him, developing him to where he is right now.
All right, on to the NFC South. I have Atlanta going 12-5. I have Tampa going 10-7. Carolina going 7-10, and New Orleans will be the number 1 overall pick next year, going 2-15.
Okay, firstly, if New Orleans goes and has the number 1 pick, it does create sort of the quandary of quandaries for Arch Manning deciding if he is coming out early for the draft, although he did not look good in the opening game. But anyway, that's a whole other subject.
That has more to do with Ohio State being great and less to do with Arch Manning, to be fair.
I'll tell you what, both those quarterbacks in that game both look like first year, oh my God, I'm the starting quarterback. And it doesn't mean that's what it's going to be the rest of the season. I think there's going to be a lot of progression for both, but both of them look like, oh my gosh, I'm starting in a huge game. Yep. What's going on? I tend to think Tampa's going to be the better team in this division. This is basically Penix's first run as a starter. Teams got a little look at him last year, so they can do a little sort of prep work to take things away. But he's going to have a lot of ups and downs as a starter behind, I think, an older offensive line. I just think Tampa, people can say what they want. Baker's a midget, whatever it may be, but the guy is an accurate thrower. He's a leader. His teammates love him. They've done a great job of building a team around him. I think Tampa wins that division easily. I think the Falcons will be second. I think Carolina is going to make significant strides this year, even though Bryce Young is a tough guy to sort of build your team around because he's a little dude who has some issues. But there's something about the kid. He's a great kid.
Yeah.
The Saints are going to be awful. I mean, just it's going to get ugly. I could see them being so bad that they end up doing one and done as the head coach. And I hate to say that, but you win 1 or 2 games, and especially if none of these quarterbacks goes out and has a great year in college, that you can say this is the guy we're pinning our hopes on, and you have to go into the market and find a guy to carry you, it's going to be bad. I think the Saints are going to be awful.
Well, I agree with you about Tampa Bay, and we had J.P. Peterson on from Tampa. He laughed at Kyle openly for taking Atlanta as the division winner.
As well he should.
Here's my question, though. You've got Kirk Cousins sitting behind Penix. Obviously, Penix your starter. What does Cousins do? Is he just going to sit back and be the backup, or is there any way to move him at this point?
I think there's a chance he gets moved, especially if a team that is a good team loses their guy. The one that, to me, if a team were smart, and trust me, I don't love Cousins. I don't think he's an elite quarterback, but he's above average, is if you're the Giants and you're sitting there thinking, how are we getting through the season and keeping our jobs? He's a guy, if Russell starts out poorly, you have to think about. But yeah, I mean, if you're them and you're Atlanta, I think a lot of it's going to be determined, and this is something we don't know. Kirk's been known as sort of an odd duck, a good guy, but an odd duck. How is he in the room with Michael? Is he truly supportive, truly being a great backup to help him and to see him succeed? And if he is, I wouldn't move him, because the future of your team is Penix. Yeah. And if this guy can help Penix become that guy, then you know what? Eat the big salary for a year. Let him help Penix become that guy. if it is not a good situation in the quarterback room, you got to find a way to trade him anywhere, anyhow, anyway. Get him out of your building.
Here's the thing with Atlanta, though. If Penix is the quarterback we all think, at least I think he is, you have all the talent around him to win now. You have a defense that's solid. Yes, the offensive line is aging, but it's a good offensive line. You got Bijan, you got Drake London. You have a solid team around him. I don't see why it's out of the question to expect this team to win 12 games.
I don't either. I think they're a very talented team. I'm very excited to see what they can do with the tight end Pitts because he's so special, but he hasn't shown it consistently.
He's the question mark.
He's a big question mark. And so is the quarterback. Let's be fair. I mean,
hey,
the quarterback starting games 6 through 20, we don't know how it's going to go. But yeah, the future, they've done a great job. Give their GM Terry Fontenot a lot of credit. They built a good team there in terms of talent. They just got to give Penix a run up. Let him get out there, let him do his thing. And that's why, to me, like I said, if Cousins is good in the room and everybody's working on the same page, I don't move on from him because everything that Penix is going to go through this year, Cousins has gone through.
Yeah.
And Cousins can be that guy. Hey, what's going on? I had an awful game. I feel like the world is ending. And Cousins can be there watching film with him and calm him down without the coaches having to be there. Those things are invaluable. So to me, there's a lot going in the right direction for that franchise.
I think you're right on the question mark with Cousins, though. Is he going to be that teammate? The fact that they haven't traded him yet, to me, means that he has been that type of teammate that's been supportive of Penix. Because you're right. If he hasn't
100%.
been that guy, they would have gotten rid of him a while ago.
Exactly. And I tend to think he would be because, I mean, I have never heard anybody say this is a bad locker room guy.
Yeah.
I've heard say he's a little bit different in some of his ways he does things. But I've always been told that, hey, this guy will not do what is bad for his team. So I think, hey, he understands the situation. May not be happy about it, but he also knows none of this was done out of spite. They were hoping he would play great last year. He would be the guy lead them to the playoffs. Penix would develop. And a year or two after that, they'd make the switch. It didn't go well. So I think if he is that guy, which I have no reason to believe he isn't, it's a perfect situation for them. A veteran backup to help a young guy like Penix, well, not super young at 26 now, but to help him adjust to the NFL. If I'm the Falcons, I'm sort of looking forward to the jumps Penix can take because he's got Cousins to lean on.
Hey, it is any given Sunday in Atlanta right now with the quarterback situation. On to the most intriguing division, in my opinion. It is the NFC West. I do have the Rams winning it at 11-6. The Niners also going at 11-6, but finishing in second due to division record. I have Seattle going 9-8, and I have Arizona going 5-12 in the last year of the Kyler Murray experiment.
Okay, I will say first, I think the Rams and Niners are both going to be the top two teams in the division. I think it's really going to come down to two things. How is Stafford's back? Right. And is this the year where the 49ers, they seem to have one good year and then two so-so years. If they get the pieces going in the right direction, I mean, they have a lot of talent on that team. So they're both going to be double-digit wins. I think it's going to be a flip of a coin who wins. I think Arizona is going to be what they've been throughout the whole time Kyler's been there, which is a highlight reel followed by mass inconsistency. So I think 5 to 7 wins is right. I am probably one of the few people who think Seattle is going to be an unmitigated disaster.
Really?
Yeah, and I hate to say it because I think John Schneider's a good guy and I've heard good things about their head coach, but I look at it and think last year they had Geno, who was athletic, and they put an awful offensive line in him, and Geno found a way to pull some magic to keep him at 500. And you guys are right there. You were front and center. You saw what happened to the Vikings when that old line struggled. And now you're putting Darnold behind this line. I mean, I think this kid's going to get pressured all day. And I think the Seahawks are going to have to rejigger their thought process, either build that O-line and maybe keep Darnold, or they may have to go get a quarterback this offseason if they don't want to all be at risk of losing their job, because Darnold is not a guy behind a bad offensive line that I see succeeding, and I think that line is not good.
Well, you mentioned it. The Vikings' offensive line in the playoffs started to all of a sudden fall apart, and that's when you saw the holes in Darnold's game.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned early at the beginning, if your O-line isn't good, it's hard to be successful. And you're taking a quarterback who, other than basically about 12 games last year, has been wildly inconsistent and bad most of his career in Darnold. and you're putting them behind what I think is at least a below average offensive line.
This is a question, and I know you have one too, but
Yeah,
this is
go ahead.
kind of off the divisions here. Why is it that the offensive line by so many teams get ignored? It seems like a pretty obvious thing. This should be number one priority, but yet for some teams, it doesn't seem to be that way.
Well, I think a lot of it stems from the fact that if you look around the league and you see a lot of the guys who have become good starters, you see a lot of third to later round picks that are super smart. They're good enough athletically, but they're not really good athletes. They're just good enough. They're really tough, really competitive. And I think a lot of teams say, well, what's the difference between this guy in the second round and this guy in getting a guy in the sixth or seventh? And a lot of teams try to figure it out that way instead of using high picks on them. I just don't get it. I mean, like I said, the old statement that my boss used to say, I didn't finish it, which is if quarterback's the most important player on your team, the guys who can knock him out of the game are next, the guys who keep him upright are next, and the guys who cover the guys he throws to are next. Well, very few teams win without a good O-line. And a lot of the teams that win regularly invest. Now, it's not always high picks, but they invest time and coaching, like the Eagles, like the Chiefs, finding players, developing them. And it just seems like some teams either don't put in the effort or, and this is another thing, and I don't want to ruffle feathers all over, you also have to remember, the NFL, half the guys who coach the offensive line, just statistically, 50% of them are going to be not so great. And I would bet half of those guys are awful of the 50%. So you're talking, there's a bunch of O-line coaches not particularly good. And you put them in charge of developing guys that need development, it's not always going to work out real well. That's why when you get a good O-line coach like the Eagles have, they pay him. And every time a team even makes a phone call about him, they pay him more and pay him more and pay him more. Because it's you get a guy, you can't afford to lose a guy who's developed the Mulata kid from nothing or Mayalata or however it's pronounced.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Look, you develop him, and every guy on that line, he's developed from a solid workmanlike or even maybe an athlete who was not even a football player to a top tier guy. You pay him whatever it takes because they're hard to find good linemen and it's hard to find great O-line coaches.
Well, Russ, we appreciate you coming on, but I have to ask the all too early Super Bowl prediction. Looking at all the teams, who do you see coming out of them?
Well, firstly, I will say in the AFC, and I know I'm a Charger fan, and that's why I picked them. I'd love to say the Chiefs because my good friend is there, and I want to see him get that. But I really have a weird feeling it's going to be Houston. I think they are the team that's going to come out of nowhere and get there. In the NFC, in truth, I find it very hard to figure out who it's going to be. I think the Eagles are probably the best team going into the season. But it's hard for me to say San Francisco, Tampa, Green Bay don't have a chance to unseat them. If I were to pick a team, I'd probably go Houston, San Fran as my pick. But the NFC one to me is, and both of them are wide open, but I just have a great feeling about Houston. I think they're going to be a dominant team.
I can't disagree with you. It is, I've never seen the NFL this wide open before on the way to a Super Bowl. There are truly teams in each league that could take the crown and be representing their conference.
No doubt. There are obviously, I think we talked about it, there's probably 6 or 8 teams that I think most people would agree have a good chance of being awful.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's a good 15 to 16 teams that I think a lot of people feel could be 11 to 12 win teams. And that doesn't happen very often, that there's a consensus that there's a good half of the league or 40% of the league that really has a chance to be very good.
I must be the only guy in America who thinks Brock Purdy's ceiling is so low that he's just not going to get 49ers over the hump.
I don't think his ceiling is particularly high. I think they're just counting on, we have a lot of talent, we have a great coach, and he's the most efficient, smart quarterback. He's not going to hurt us. And I think that's what they look at. He's a good quarterback. I don't think he's elite and rare, but he doesn't make mistakes that hurt them, plays within their system, does exactly what they need. I agree. I don't think he's special, but he does everything you want in that system.
Fair enough.
Russ, you made me feel a heck of a lot better about my list. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. We'll be talking to you soon.
Of course. Anytime you need me, guys, I will be here unless I forget completely like I did.
No worries. Thanks, Russ.
Thanks, Russ.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. I am sticking to my list I have created for this year. I am sticking to it, although Russ has made me question a few things on it, especially the Chargers.
You know, the one thing I think he's dead on, Herbert has always had the talent, but if Harbaugh can't turn him around, I don't think he can be turned around.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think this is a year. I mean, that's why I chose the Chargers. This is a year where Herbert has to show, hey, I'm the quarterback of the future for this franchise. If not, Harbaugh's not going to be afraid to pull that trigger and be like, listen, I don't care how much money we spent, because we've seen that throughout the NFL now. Teams are not afraid to say, I know we spent the money. I don't care. This isn't working. We need to find somebody new. I still believe Herbert's going to find a way to win this year, but man, Russ could be right. They could easily go 500 this year.
Well, I would certainly bet on Russ before I bet on your picks.
I 100% agree.
You know what it's time for?
It is time for me to redeem myself this year and for you to come back down to earth.
That's just as a reminder, last year I finished 64-32. I will not be that this year. You were 2 games under 500.
Which is normal. That's where not this year. I have a list. What's your first game?
All right. We're going to start it out with those Chargers we were talking about, the Chiefs, traveling to play the Chargers in LA.
All right. I am going into my list right now. In this game, I have the LA Chargers beating the Kansas City Chiefs to open week 1.
I'm taking the Chiefs.
All right.
All right. Game number 2. This will be an interesting game. Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Atlanta to play the Falcons.
All right, hold on. It's hard now because I have to flip through pages to find my list. I should really learn the games before we pick them so I make this easier. I have Atlanta winning that game, beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And I got Tampa winning on the road.
One of us is going to have a good week, I hope.
Okay, and this one, game of the week probably. Ravens at the Bills.
All right, Ravens at the Bills. Here's the thing with this is going to be the game of the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have the Bills beating Baltimore, specifically because it's in Buffalo.
That's the only reason I'm going with it.
You going Buffalo too?
If this was in Baltimore, I'd be taking Baltimore.
I agree.
All right, so we're the same on that one. Another great game. Could this be the start of the Texans Super Bowl run? They go to LA to play the Rams.
I have Houston winning that one, going away. I don't trust Stafford's back this year.
Well,
I just don't. I still have the Chargers finishing 11-6 because I think that they're going to figure it out. But Stafford's, talk about the season being on Stafford's back. It truly is. If his back can hold up, they're going to be good. If not, they're in trouble.
I think it holds up because you got Jimmy G as your backup.
Yippee.
Pretty quarterback. Talent, we don't know yet. I think the Rams.
We know what he is. He's a guy who wins games.
Yes, he does.
But he's needs the rest of the team to perform for him to be good.
Because Devontae Adams is there, because it's week 1, because Stafford he'll be ready and he'll play well. They'll win this first game.
All right.
And finally, the Lions go to the hype of the NFL, the Green Bay Packers.
I don't need my list for this. I don't pick against the Packers, but I do on my list have the Packers winning this game. They always have a good week.
They do. I think Micah is going to be fired up. Hutchinson always scares me.
He does. I don't know how much Mike is going to play in week 1.
I don't know either.
He just got his iPad a couple days ago. He's starting to learn the defense, but he's plug and play.
He's plug and play. My concern is Jordan Love going to have any time at all? Because they're going to key on Josh Jacobs to start with, but Love's going to need some time to be able to throw it, and the receivers have to catch the damn ball.
Well, you got Matthew Golden. This needs to be his coming out party. It really does.
And only for that reason I think the hype. Packers are going to be fired up. They do always play well in week 1, so I'm going to take the Packers week 1.
It's going to be a high-scoring game. I mean, this team, the Green Bay Packer team, is really going to rely now on Micah Parsons to make those corners look better. You're going to have to give Jared Goff very little time. But in week 1, it'll be interesting to see how it works out.
The Lions have 2 new coordinators. It's going to take a while for their team to come together. Hutchinson always scares me. He's so good. We'll
see what he is after the injury. But you and I have had a great show, and as you all know, you cannot have a conversation with your father without your dad getting the last word. So it is all you.
So 36 years ago, the guy sitting across from me came into the world. My father looked at him and said, he's a keeper. Now, in all honesty, he said the same thing about his brother Ryan, but they're both keepers. So I've had nothing but 36 years of sheer joy being a parent to you, and thank you for turning out to be a better man than even I am.
It was really every 36 years.
36
good years.
36. That means you're middle aged officially.
Shut up. We're not talking about that. Thank you, as always, so much for watching. This has been Sports Talk with Dad. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.